Hi, Chan. Of the two players who have been the team's biggest playmakers since midway through last year, obviously predating your arrival, Devontae's been very involved last couple of games, very productive. Gesicki, two catches over the last two games. Are teams defending Gesicki more closely? And do you ever believe you should force the ball into a playmaker's hands, even if he's being closely defended, or is that simply not sensible?
Well, that the answer to your first question is they have covered him a lot tighter and been a lot more. I mean, wouldn't you, after he had 130 yards or whatever it was, that's what they're doing. And the question about forcing the ball, if it's double covered, you don't want to force it. If it's single coverage and he's one-on-one, but it's tight coverage, yeah, you can afford to throw a ball in there at times and give a guy a chance to make a play. And, we've been a few times, it's looked like they were double covering him and they ended up single covering him, but to the quarterback on his first look, it looked double covered. So Fitz got off of him. We just got to pay closer attention to how they're actually playing him during the course of the game. And I think hopefully now that we've put the ball some other places, things will start to come back his way.
Travis?
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you about your left guard, Eric Flowers, and kind of just how his presence opens things up for you, both in the run game, the pass game, the play action game. To the untrained eye, it looks like he's having a pretty good start to the season so far.
He's having a very good start to the season. He is a calming influence on the line for us. He's very competitive on game day, but very quiet during the week and very calm and really very professional about the way he goes about his business. So I've been very happy with what he's brought to us, not only on the field, playing, blocking, run game, pass game, but what he brings as a leader to our offensive line.
Hal?
Hi, Chan. Regarding Preston Williams, what are you seeing out of him? He only has 6 catches out of 17 targets. I know you weren't here last year, but based on maybe what film you saw of him last year, is he still battling for those contested catches like he was pre-injury, or how do you get him more active in the offense?
We're trying to use all our weapons, and the good thing is we think we have several weapons. The bad thing is there's only one football. So if it's not a clean look, he's not getting the throws right now. But we're hoping to continue to work with him and put him in positions to get some catches. We know he can be a weapon. We know he should be a weapon. And we got to continue to work with him on what suits him best and get him in a position to be successful, because we need him to. The more weapons we can get on the field, the better off we are as far as creating problems for the defense.
Joe Shad?
Good morning, Chan. I'm sure you're aware that it's been officially confirmed and announced that Fitzy will be the starting quarterback on Sunday, so there's no breaking news there. But what are some of the things that give you cause for optimism or hope that this will be the right decision?
Well, I've been around Fitz for a long time, and I've seen him play very, very well. And I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. So I see great things coming in the future, and that's how I see it. It's easy to point fingers. That's the easiest thing in the world, is to point fingers. If you want to point fingers, you ought to point them at me, because I could have helped us a lot better in the red zone and done a better job of red zone coaching this past week, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I think that I think he is capable of being very good for us.
Omar?
Chan, I wanted to ask you, I know we don't really know the status of Austin Jackson heading into this week, but how did you feel Julian Davenport performed? And what goes into your decision of putting, playing the best left tackle?
You're always trying to identify what guys do well and how they play, and then you look at the amount of experience that somebody has, and then you look at the amount of potential that somebody has. So you're trying to weigh all those things when you're looking at decisions about who's going to play in a ball game, who's shown what in practice. As we look at Julian, he was really in there at the end of the game, and it was almost all pass sets. And that's something that he does very well. So he did pretty good as far as that goes. So we'll evaluate all the guys that we have and make a decision sometime this week about the direction that we'll go.
Cam?
Hey, how you doing, Chan? I know, we talked about earlier, Fitzy's the guy this week, but with Tua one snap away, I wanted to ask, what do you think his football readiness is to be able to play at a high level if he becomes the guy at some point?
Well, we get him ready every week, and we have, what he feels comfortable with. But that's not something that I do that with Fitz too. I say, what are you most comfortable with? So we asked Tua, what are you most comfortable with? So that if he has to go in the game, like you said, he's one play away from having to play. So I feel like that he'll go in and play well. He's a rookie. He hadn't played a preseason game. He hadn't been in a game at all. So it'll be a new experience for him. He'll have to go in there with eyes wide open. But I think that knowing the person he is and the type of preparation that he puts in, I think he's going to be ready when his time's called.
Steve One?
Chan, you say Fitz is capable of being very good, and we've all seen how good how well he can play. But he has described his career himself as roller coaster. And this year, it's kind of been the same thing. 2 games, he's had 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. The other 2 games, no touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. What do you see with the inconsistency that it seems like has always been there for him?
Well, when the biggest problem for Fitz is when defenses don't do what they're supposed to do. When a guy gets out of position and they're not where they're supposed to be, because he knows he's studied and he knows where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. And that's the biggest problem, And, a couple of them, interceptions are going to happen, and we all want to go back to statistics because that's the one thing you can put your finger on is a statistic. But there's a lot more to the game than statistics. And he does a lot for this football team that statistics don't show.
All right, we have time for one more. We'll go to Safin.
Hey, Coach, good morning. Noticing back on the Seattle film, I noticed, Fitz was doing, this with his hands towards the sideline, and maybe he looked a little visibly frustrated, maybe I don't know, maybe the play calls or how things were kind of going on the field during that game, particularly when you guys hit the red zone. Did you have that same sense, and maybe what was the conversation like about those instances after the game?
No, he couldn't hear the call.
Oh, okay.
And so he was telling us to call it again. That's the call it again. Give him the call again. That's what it was. He has said I'm crazy, but that was not the signal for that.
Benogany, what can he do better to prevent what's been happening from happening again in terms of receivers getting open behind him? What can he do differently or better?
Well, I think a lot of it starts with, just a more attention to detail, a more focused practice. Like I've said before, practice is the closest thing that we get to game action. So I think, when things become habit and you do it over and over again, and you're focused to detail from a play to play standpoint, which he's a diligent worker. He'll come in, put a good day's work in, and hopefully things will improve. And we ask that of all of our guys. So the things that aren't going so well for guys, we work hard to try to improve that, and the things that they're doing good, we try to build on. So I think a lot of it goes to practice and really just focus on a play-to-play basis.
All right, Barry.
Hi, Josh. You've had some good plays from your defensive tackles. You've also had some runs up the gut that have gained sizable yardage. Would you say your defensive tackle play has been good, average, below average?
Oh, I would say it's like all positions, whether it's defensive tackles, defensive ends, linebackers, safeties, corners. I think we're looking for improvement. So we've had some good plays. We've had some plays that you'd like to play better. I think our thing is a play in, play out consistency. And I think when you can build that over time, that allows you to be a pretty good defense. So I would say, we're striving for improvement in all areas, and it really comes down to consistency in our play.
Safid.
Hey, Coach. Good morning. I want to ask, when you guys are playing zone and Noah has a receiver that kind of runs right by him, maybe even rubs him a little bit, is he supposed to stay in his zone area, or is he supposed to trail off with that runner and follow him? And do you think his ability to maybe switch from man to zone, from play to play, needs some work there?
Well, again, I think, you try to be multiple in all things that you do. So whether it's from a front standpoint, whether from it's a pressure standpoint or a coverage standpoint, we're going to ask guys to be multiple in what they're doing. And, and then obviously we got to have all 11 guys working on the same page. And I would say that starts with me. I need to continue to improve, and, I need to get our guys to, all 11 guys be on the same page and know and understand the calls. And, that's what we're working towards.
Hal?
Josh, on a similar topic, when we talked to Eric Rowe yesterday, and I asked him about what was happening at the back end, he talked a little bit about communication. He talked about checks at the line, and when guys go in motion, there seems to be some communication issues going on. What do you see, and how do you solve that?
Well, I mean, there's, the offenses, that we'll face, and we're going to see another one this week that motions, as much as anybody in the league. So, there's always going to be communication, whether it's from the front or the back end. Again, a lot of that starts with us in practice, and I wouldn't say all of the errors that we've had have not been communication. Some of them are just basic stuff that, it's a focus thing from play in, play out from multiple players. And obviously, for us to be good consistently on a down in and down basis, we have to be able to handle motion. We have to be able to know and understand our calls. And, and then once we can get to that point, we've shown spurts or flashes of playing good defense from time to time, but on a down in, down out basis, we're all striving to improve. And like I said, that starts with me, and that's what we're working to do.
Safid?
Jimmy Garoppolo is dealing with a high ankle sprain. He may or may not play. And C.J. Beathard came in after Nick Mullins and led a touchdown drive late in the fourth quarter of that Monday night game. I wanted to ask, how do you prepare for three quarterbacks instead of maybe one or two? And do you think it's a schematic thing with Shanahan's offense that would maybe make it a little bit easier for you guys?
Well, I think Kyle does an outstanding job with his offense. I think, we will prepare for all three quarterbacks just like we prepare for everybody that's on the roster. So, I mean, you go in, week out. Sometimes you have a better idea that this guy's going to play a little bit more than the next guy. from the quarterback position. So we'll make our guys aware of all three guys, and we'll be prepared no matter who plays. Like I said, Kyle does a great job with his offense. There's so many explosive players that they have. Their offensive line is really athletic. It's a big challenge for us.
Alan?
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
Josh, how would you describe the challenge of trying to deal with George Kittle, and what's the best way to go about trying to minimize the impact he can have on the game?
Well, again, I think they do a very good job with their scheme. They'll move him around. They'll use him in multiple facets. They'll hand speed sweeps to him. He'll be a focal point in the passing game. He's a guy that we'll obviously need to know, most everybody, and, we'll need to know where he is and what our plan is on how to handle it. And I don't think it's just one way that you do it. And, obviously he's a really good player, and, and I know he's had the injury, but he didn't miss a beat last week. We'll definitely, and again, they have a lot of other good explosive players. These guys can hit home runs from anywhere. So we're gonna have to do a good job making sure all 11 guys for us defensively are on the same page, and we know where their skill position guys are, and we know that they're gonna move. And we just need to be ready to defend what's coming at us.
All right, Coach, there's one more question. We'll go to Joe Shad.
Josh, I really enjoy watching this Zach Sealer. He's kind of opens my eyes. He's all over the place. What are some of the things about his approach that you really like?
Well, one thing, and I would say, one thing that makes the job enjoyable is that we have a lot of guys that they put in a great day's work. They come in and they work as hard as they possibly can. They're constantly striving for improvement. I think Zach embodies that. I think, when you watch Zach on the field, he plays with great effort. And that's probably what sticks out most is, obviously you love and respect that about him. And he's constantly in coaches' offices, trying to get better, trying to watch more film. And then he goes out and he practices as hard as he possibly can. And then he's going to play as hard as he possibly can. And like everybody else, there's some things that are good that, that he's doing. And then there's some things that we're working on to try to get better. But Zach is a hard worker, and he's a high effort guy. And he's really a joy to be around. And, and again, I feel lucky that, most of our guys are like that. And they're very highly motivated, and they're very diligent workers. So, and we know the task at hand in front of us. And we just need to keep striving for improvement and try to get to the point where we can play down in, down out, consistent football.
Hi, Danny. What's impressed you about Jason Sanders in your nearly 2 years around him now?
I think the biggest thing that jumps out at you is, how coachable he is. He's always looking to try and improve weekly, almost daily, every time we go out on their practice field. He's willing to try and work on anything you give him. And, and then if you scrap it, you scrap it, but he's always open and willing to try whatever you may suggest. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Omar?
Good morning. I want to ask you, what was that kick that you did that you pinned them inside the 5? You could put, what do you call that? And what goes into the thought process of making that kick in that situation?
Well, not to get into what we call it. We're just trying to change things up, give some different looks, change up what we're doing, see if we can't maybe like work out and help ourselves in terms of some field position. But like anything we're doing, just trying to give them a different look and see if we can't come up with a play.
Joe Shad?
Yeah, just following up on Omar, I thought that was real interesting because nobody expects to return kickoffs at this point in time. I guess my question would be, How hard is it for the kicker, your kicker, to consistently place the ball within the 5 or 7 yard area when asked? And then what is the research showing about whether it just does, whether it makes sense to even try that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I do. And I think it sort of goes, this question sort of ties into, everything we've talked about. I think it goes back to Jason, and him being willing to, hey, let's look at this, let's look at that. But I think, as we all know, a lot of those kicks, when it comes down to the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the bounce. You get a good bounce and it's a good kick. You get a bad bounce and it's not a good kick. So, but having confidence in Jason, and obviously anything we do, we work on where, we feel the percentages are good enough to attempt it to put it on during a game.
How?
Sort of a two-part question. You mentioned it goes back to Jason. I'm curious was he the first person to bring up that idea? I know a lot of teams do it, but was he the first one to suggest it? And also going back to the previous question, it works so well for you. I wonder, is there a limit, you think, as to how often you can pull that off? Or I could see where some fans might see it and say, why don't they just do that, a whole lot more often?
Yeah, I think there's a limit to everything. I think you gotta be smart and diligent and in terms of what you're doing and when you're doing it. If you go to the well too often on anything, I think it's eventually gonna not work out like you hope it would. But in terms of where it developed, I think we're always looking at things, and it's just something. And you work with Jason, and you work with Matt, you work with any specialist, and you just try and explore of, okay, what do we like and what do we not like in terms of what we could possibly be able to execute in a game. And to be able to do that, you got to be able to do it in practice, and it goes from there. But sort of it's a group effort on everything we're trying to do in terms of trying to make a play to win a game.
Joe?
Going to the onside kick, it looked like a pretty good kick. The guy made a nice catch. I mean, there's every chance in the world that he bobbles that, and then Breed is running through there real fast, real fast. Breed is fast. I guess, what were your thoughts on that kick and the strategy to place it over the first line there?
I think you're just trying to get numbers. What are the numbers? Where do you think you have an advantage? So it's like anything you do, what kicks do you like, and then what numbers do you have? So there's always a balance. But we liked what we saw. We just weren't able to pull it off.